Welcome back, my name is LastKnownMeal, and today I'm going to talk about the Witcher Netflix series. Well, I'm going to talk about some things that this series needs to get right to be good, to be a good adaptation, because there's some general rules that were established by Andrzej Sapkowski in the books that are adapted in the video game that have to be adapted in the series as well to make this a really good show. And the first thing I'm going to talk about are the characters. Of course, when I talk about the characters, the first thing people talk about is, of course, Geralt of Rivia, who is going to play Geralt of Rivia, how Geralt of Rivia is going to look like. But when I think about the characters, I don't only think about Geralt of Rivia, I think about a range of other characters that also need to support Geralt of Rivia in basically pushing the story forward. Of course, Geralt is going to be the main protagonist, he's going to be a character which is going to push the story, but you have so many other characters that need to make this show good, not just Geralt of Rivia. There is one general rule that was established in the books by Sapkowski, and that is that you don't have ultimately good or ultimately bad characters. There is always this gray area when it comes to characters, not just the world, but characters in particular. For example, one theme which is going in the books and the video game is choosing a lesser evil. Geralt of Rivia is always put to test with so many decisions he has to make every single day, and not all of those decisions are ultimately good or ultimately bad. Choosing a lesser evil, if faced with a decision to kill a group of people, to save a group of people, Geralt has to choose a lesser evil. Does he need to kill all these people to save an entire village, for example? Even he knows those things are bad. He's making a really bad decisions, he's turning himself into a killer, but he has to choose this lesser evil to save lives, because Witchers are basically made, they're trained to save lives, not only from monsters, but from human or non-human monsters in particular, because the first thing that Geralt of Rivia actually did when he went on the Witcher's path, when he finished his training, is that he saved a girl from being raped. And the first thing he did, he didn't kill a monster, he killed a human. And that is the first thing you see when establishing a character, is that every single one of them, Triss, Yennefer, Dandelion, every single one of them is a character that needs to showcase full range of his emotions to make it good. A great story is not only made with a protagonist, it's also with a really good antagonist. If you look at The Dark Knight, Batman wouldn't be Batman without the Joker. And even in the series, for example, like Breaking Bad, Walter White, he was a good character, and then the series of decisions made him who he really is. Ultimately not a really bad character, like an evil character, and ultimately not a good character, but a character with a full range of emotions and a gray area, which makes him so deep and such an interesting character. So this is a thing that Netflix series needs to do well concerning the characters. It's making those characters complicated, not ultimately good and not ultimately evil. The second thing I'm going to talk about are the monsters. I think the main concern also people have with this are the monsters. Like, Netflix needs to do monsters well, and a lot of people are concerned about the CGI. Of course, this series doesn't have an infinite budget, so the budget is going to reflect a lot when it comes to monsters. Like, some monsters are going to be more expensive than other ones, for example, but one thing I really hope is that it's not going to rely too much on CGI. I have nothing against CGI, but in some parts CGI can be such a bad thing because it makes a character too artificial. It doesn't, of course, it's not a real character, it's a CGI, but CGI is going towards making the characters as realistic as possible. But some of those monsters can be achieved through practical effects, not only CGI. So I'm guessing making a mix of practical effects and CGI is going to affect the monsters a lot, making them more real, making them more, how would I say, present when Geralt of Rivia is fighting them, for example. So that is something Netflix needs to do right, the monsters. Third thing I'm going to talk about is a realistic depiction of the world and the Witcher universe. One main thing that is present in the books, and especially in the first 2 video games, is racism. It's the fight between humans and non-humans. If you look at the video games, for example, even if you read the books, you can see how illogical this fight is, because you have 2 sides confronting each other, blaming all of the problems in the world on each other, and they're fighting constantly and it's not leading them anywhere. So showcasing that racism in the series is going to make this world more believable, it's going to make this world more realistic, and it's going to make the characters more realistic, because you have 2 sides fighting for the same idea, to be free, to have rights. And you can see that a simple way would be to sit down at a table and talk about all the problems, but no, violence and basically this pride every single race in this universe has is stopping them from achieving that peace. So dealing with that problem in the series is very important, and I think it's going to expand the universe and make this series really, really good. Next thing I'm going to talk about, which is going to be a continuation to my previous topic, is those gray areas, not just when it comes to characters, but also the world. The world of The Witcher is not a light one. The world of The Witcher has everything, going from rape, murder, people beheading each other, decapitating parts of bodies, you have people eating each other. It's not a very nice place to be in. So showcasing all the things that this world has to offer is definitely going to make this show more realistic and more, how would I say, canon to the books. Because people, when they think about The Witcher, they always go to the video game. Again, this is an adaptation from the books, not the video game. But the books themselves are very complicated when it comes to the world, because you have everything. As I said, it's a very evil world in my opinion, and showcasing all the things, like where you have moments that are ultimately evil and you have moments which are ultimately good, is going to show the entire spectrum of the universe, from really bad things like rape to really good things like people coming together to fight a monster or something like that. And this topic is already addressed by Lauren Schmidt, who is a showrunner for this series, and she said it's going to showcase the world as it is. It's not going to sugarcoat anything, it's not going to censor some parts because, hey, we want to censor it. It's going to showcase the world as it is, and this is definitely crucial to make this a great series. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today, which is somewhat of a personal opinion, but it's always an opinion I have when there is a new show being produced, it's making it unique. A lot of people have been comparing The Witcher with Game of Thrones, but in my opinion that is not good. Let Game of Thrones be Game of Thrones, let the Vikings be the Vikings, but let's allow Netflix to produce this show and make it unique. And by that, it's not only when it comes to storytelling, it's also when it comes to visuals, the sounds, the monsters, the characters, everything. And by comparing this with Game of Thrones or the Vikings, you're kinda putting all of these things into one cup. And it's not always a very healthy thing for the show, because people might expect the spectacle that Game of Thrones has, but you also need to realize that Game of Thrones has much bigger budget per episode than the first season of The Witcher. One great example is Thor trilogy. The first 2 Thor movies, even though I enjoyed them, they were somewhat the same. The third Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok, is something completely different. And by that, they moved away from the idea of the first 2 movies and made it unique. And when people are talking about Thor trilogy, the one movie they're going to say, hey, this is unique, is Thor Ragnarok. And I believe that this series can achieve that. If only when it comes to storytelling, the visuals, the audio, the monsters, does something different. And by doing something different, you're going to make it unique and separate this show from other shows like Game of Thrones and Vikings, as I said. I'm not saying that these shows are bad, I love them, but let's not compare these two, please. It's a very personal opinion, I know for a lot of people it can be a very bad opinion, but I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. You have one more video on this topic from a fellow YouTuber, Captainmidnight. I'm going to link his video down below, go check it out, it's amazing. So, this is LastKnownMeal signing out, stay classy everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video, bye bye.